You're listening to Saturday Morning Media. And now, back to our show. I have a lot of really cool friends who do a lot of really cool things. I wanted to make it a goal to sit down with these friends and spend about 15 minutes or so getting to know them better and find out about their past, present, and their future. The result is this show. My name is Grant Baciocco, and this is 15 Minutes With. Barbara Holliday is a comedian and a comedy club owner, and she is today's guest on the GrantCast. Hello, and welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you for having me, Grant.
Now, you do so much stuff now, but I want to go back to the beginning. Where did you grow up?
Ooh, I was actually born in Long Island, New York.
Long Island, New York.
You couldn't tell from my accent, but if I start talking to my family, you'll hear it.
Yeah.
Long Island, New York. Very different from the West Coast. I've only lived on either coast, east or
Nowhere
west.
in between.
Nowhere in between. Thank goodness.
Oh, come on now. And how long did you stay in New York? Because I know that you also didn't you live in Oregon?
Time in Oregon. Thanks for bringing it up, Grant.
Well, we'll get to that.
Home of serial killers. Okay.
But how long did you grow up in?
I actually went to grade school, and my dad actually worked for Grumman Corporation, and that's how we ended up kind of on the West Coast. So I went to fourth grade in New York in public schools, and then we headed to San Diego, California. Parents divorced, that kind of thing. Mom married new guy who was from Oregon. From Oregon. Ended up in Oregon for high school. So it's always weird that then you graduate from high school that everyone thinks that's where you grew up, but I actually hated Oregon. I'm allergic to Oregon.
The trees and the green.
Yes, and the serial killers. I'm telling you, read the newspapers. You'll see it.
So when you were growing up, what was the first kind of creative thing that captured you, that inspired you?
Well, what's interesting is my sister and I somehow were very compelled to sing. Mm-hmm. So we started singing simple songs like, "This land is your land, this land is my land," that kind of thing. I don't know why we sang patriotic songs. I have no idea. But we thought we sounded really cool together, so we sort of had this little duo thing, and we would do shows for our parents in our closet. Like, has anyone done this?
I used to do shows for my parents all the time. Not in the closet, but...
Well, so we would close the closet doors.
Right.
That would be like our curtain.
Right.
And then we'd get everyone sat down, and then we'd get in the closet, and then when we were ready, we would open the closet doors, and the singing show would begin.
Yeah. And
my mother actually took us around to a lot of nursing homes to sing for older folks. Mm-hmm. And that was probably my first, entree into the performance world, and I loved singing. I thought I was a very good singer. I don't think anyone thinks that now, but the old people didn't care, I guess. I don't know. And my mother, of course, loved it. So
your parents were at least your mom was very supportive of you pursuing creative things?
Yeah, in the realm, my mom went to actually an art high school in New York, mostly for visual arts. So she did photo coloring, which was a popular thing before color photography. Who knows? They would take black and white photos and photo color them. So she was quite creative on the visual realm, and I definitely inherited that from my mom. My dad, not so much. My dad was an engineer, worked for Grumman Aerospace, total computer geek. However, great sense of humor. No common sense, hilarious sense of humor. Sorry, Dad, if you're listening. I love you dearly.
And when you got up into high school and stuff, and I know you went to Oregon, but were you still doing creative things, even all throughout high school?
Yeah, in high school, what happened was I actually got on the debate team, and I did specifically oratory, which is persuasive speaking. And I competed on a forensic team, they call it. It's so weird, forensics. You think it's like science and crime now.
CSI.
But forensics actually is the debate and speech team.
Yeah.
And so I got on that. I had a great high school teacher. I got Mr. Remick, amazing. And I started to do really well at the persuasive speaking. And also, I forgot, dramatic interp was the other term. If you would read something that was written by somebody already. Oratory, you had to create your own speeches and try to convince people of a certain opinion. But dramatic interpretation, I started to do, and that was like a little bit more on the acting realm.
Right.
And I always ended up turning serious things into humorous on accident. I was trying to be serious.
Right.
But I have so much energy that when I am reading something serious, it's hard for me to keep a straight face. It's really hard for me to be serious.
Yeah.
Like at jury duty or anywhere where you're supposed to be really serious.
Funeral.
TSA. I just can't do it. I'm so compelled just to. Ugh. So anyway, the dramatic interp turned into humorous interp, and my humorous interp probably was more dramatic than I wanted it to be, but I was very successful on the speech team, and then I started doing plays in high school, and it was such a great escape because, nobody likes their family life, but I could stay busy after school and get the approval that I so desperately needed.
Yeah.
And I could combine my singing, so I did a lot of musicals in high school, and believe it or not, I wasn't popular in school, but I always got the lead roles in the plays. And so suddenly all the popular kids would see me doing they would come see a play and they'd see me doing the lead role. And then they're like, hey, that girl, she's kind of cool. And I started to feel like I had a home.
And then after high school, did you go to college?
Yes, I went to San Diego State, back to California, left Oregon, 17, quick as I could, drove my car. Had my dad come get me, drove down to San Diego, and I was a theater major at San Diego State University with a minor in dance. I was, in high school, I was on the dance team as well. I call it flag team, but I call it dance team. I want to say that I was dancing, not flagging. No. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's so weird. And in college, SDSU was amazing. I learned so many skills, honestly. People say a theater degree, what do you do with it? Well, I learned lighting. I did lighting plots, and I did all the lighting I now own a comedy club, and I used all those skills. We did costume design. I am always involved with stitching or doing something with clothing or material in the club in some way. Performance, every day is a performance for me now. Yes. How did I get into comedy? You're probably going to ask me.
Well, we'll get into that. Did you start doing comedy shortly after college?
Well, in college, I was doing musicals again because I had, what's funny is I could sing and I've always danced, but I've never been able to play an instrument, a musical instrument. Such a different skill. I've wanted to so bad. I'm so envious of you because I know you do the guitar so well.
Oh, thanks.
And I pick up a guitar and it's like, it's a different mindset, I guess. So I started to get into musicals in college. I did every musical known to man. I was in Sweeney Todd, Cinderella, Pirates of Penzance, just tons and tons of musicals. And they were always funny. I was always the comic sidekick somehow. Even in my physical movement, my dancing, somehow people always laughed.
Yeah.
I wasn't a ballerina, I'll just say that. So there there kept being this propensity for comedy. Right? And I didn't know what stand-up was or anything like that yet. And then one day I was dating a guy, and in bed one morning, he said, "You're really funny." And I said, maybe you shouldn't tell me that while we're in bed.
Yeah.
And he said, no, I'm serious. You should take a stand-up comedy class. I'm in it, and you'd be really good at it. And I was like, what? Really? And that's how I ended up doing stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
Thanks, John Leone, the Italian stallion.
Now we know
my
who
inspiration.
He is. So you started doing... So did you took that class and you started doing comedy?
I took a class and I met a guy in there named Dave Reinitz. See, one boyfriend led me to the class, and then I ended up meeting another boyfriend in the class. Dave Reinitz, who is currently my partner, he was in that class, and so it was our first one, and we were terrible. Oh my gosh, I had a major breakdown in the class. I had been married, got married, and that was in Oregon, very briefly, a couple years. And I was talking about my divorce in the comedy, and no one was laughing. It was very corny jokes like, I'm not upset about my divorce. I'm positive. Even my blood type is B positive. You know, it was just very hacky, corny. And the teacher, Greg Dean, amazing teacher, he said, come on, you know, you're not really happy about your divorce. And I was like, yes, I am, you know, and I kept lying. And eventually I had like a super huge breakdown on stage and cried and bawled. And I was like, what do you mean I'm not in touch with myself emotionally, you know? But that breakdown kind of changed everything. Like, I think creatively, you have to have something like that happen to make you see. You think you're coming off one way, but having that kind of breakdown makes you see yourself in a different way. And that's when I had a real turnaround. And then my stand-up actually started to get pretty good. Yeah.
Well, when did, I mean, we're going to talk more about comedy, but when did, because I don't want to skip over it, when did Roxy the Fox happen? When was that?
Oh, gosh. So many things. So I went to San Diego State University, and I graduated, and I was in love with a guy from high school in Oregon, and he led me to Eugene, Oregon. And I was like, oh my God, I don't want to go back to Oregon. But I went for him. And I had graduated with a theater degree and landed my dream job. Got married to him, went to Eugene, landed my dream job as a kids club host for Fox Television. Hey kids, welcome to the kids club. Today we're going to talk to Mr. Mailbox. So I played a character called Roxy the Fox, whom a lot of people still know. Just went to Portland, still have fans.
What time range was this? Like,
oh gosh, now you make me sound old. No,
but it was like in the 90s? Or
yes,
was it
early 90s. Late 80s, early 90s. Big push for children's television during that time. And also Simpsons had just come out. I worked for a Fox affiliate. And basically the mission was all the Fox affiliates across the country had to fulfill a certain educational requirement for TV. So they hired these kids club hosts. And I happened to come in for an audition. And it was one of those things like, I brought all the skills we just talked about. I brought my singing, I brought my dancing, I brought my movement, and I brought my humor. And I literally entered the audition by doing back walkovers across the whole room. That was how I entered the room, back walkovers. Jumped in the center of the room and said, welcome to the kids club. And that was, I'm Roxy the Fox.
Roxy the Fox.
They wanted us to create our own, I created my own character. So I walked in with an idea of who I would be and what kind of character I would do. Of course, I had no costume or anything like that. It was all just my personality. And I nailed the job. And weirdly enough, my agent actually died like 2 weeks later. I had gotten an agent up there, and she got me the audition. Yeah, it was so strange. So I got thrown into television, and I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know about the unions. I didn't know how should I be protected, how much should I be paid, what do I do every day. And I ended up writing, directing, producing, and performing for 4 years.
Yeah, and how many, was it was like 5 days a week?
Yep, I was on air Monday through Friday from 3 to 5 o'clock every day between the cartoons. Darkwing Duck, the good old
Disney
days.
Afternoon.
Yes,
type
yes,
stuff.
yes.
Yeah. That's, what do you think the biggest lesson you learned doing that for 4 years? Like, that has maybe stuck even with you now?
Yeah, well, creatively, I mean, I think I turned into a producer because I was the on-air personality, but I was at a relatively small TV station. My show aired all across Oregon, except for Portland market only, but the rest of Oregon, my character dominated the airways every day. But the thing was, a station like that, they don't know how to produce children's television. They're just trying to fulfill their requirement. So I really had to step up into the producer role because I wanted the quality of what I was doing to be better or the best it could be. So I would schedule my own guests. You know, I would try to involve kids as much as possible. And I really learned to write a segment. I learned to plan out and produce daily episodes of television. And also working at the TV station, I learned a lot about advertising and that, side of things. And so I realized what my value was as a performer. And as my value the show gained in popularity, the value of my advertising went up, and therefore the value of my pay could go up.
Right.
And then weirdly, like I said, I wasn't even in the union though. Then I kind of got sick of it, I'll be honest. You know, you get typecast, and everything I was doing was for children. I did PSAs for muscular dystrophy, you know, wear your helmet when you're riding a bike, kids, you know. And I was like on every local TV commercial if they wanted a family-friendly, you know, safe performer host. I had the job. I would go to malls and touch hundreds of kids and sign autographs and
like
get
their hands, right? Shake
yes,
their hands.
Yes,
okay,
yes.
yeah,
That's
just clear.
Thank you for clarifying that.
In Oregon, serial killers.
Yes, I wanted to choke them, but I just merely caressed them. No.
You're ruining lives right now, Barbara. Fantastic.
Yes, interesting time. But I got really tired of it, and I wanted something more creatively.
Yeah.
You know, I could have done it I could still be doing it right now.
Sure.
But I felt creatively stifled. Like I felt like I had done about as much as I could do in about 4.5 years. I learned I was a builder. Like I liked to build it from scratch and make it. And by the way, they tried to cast another performer. I signed a deal with Fox that said that I owned the character, but I created it under that umbrella policy while being paid by Fox Television. So they could use the character if they wanted. So they tried to hire another host, and it didn't work. The new performer just didn't have the same. In fact, people started writing letters and stuff, and they're like, "This is not Roxy." And the reason is I did have a mask. It didn't cover my whole face, so you could try to sneak someone else in there, but it was my eyes, my voice, my body, my movements,
well, your mannerisms.
Yeah. It just goes to show you that there's some value to all of that. So
well, it's interesting you say that you became a producer because. When I first met you, which was 2003 or something, even earlier than that, or something around there, maybe. Oh no.
Did you know the Instigator days?
No, I don't
think. I did a sketch group for a while.
I don't think so. But when I met you, it was actually. I'm saying 2003. It's before 2003.
Yeah.
But you know, maybe like 99 or something like that. But you were producing a comedy show. And so you were doing stand-up, and you're doing stand-up with Dave. But how did you guys decide, like, oh, we're gonna start producing our own show?
Right. Well, the time I got divorced, moved back to LA, wanted to hit the big time, tired of Roxy the Fox, and then I came to LA, couldn't do anything. Like I wasn't getting cast in anything except game shows.
Yeah.
So met the guy, talks me into the stand-up class. I'm doing the stand-up class. Meet Dave, and then we start performing at open mics and just trying to get our stand-up off the ground. And I thought, well, this is a great way to get seen because as a stand-up, you're the writer, director, producer, and performer. You're like the whole package.
Yeah.
But still hard to get cast, hard to get booked in shows, or people would book shows and they were sloppy. So Dave and I Dave started it first. He created a comedy contest called Uncle Clyde's Comedy Contest.
Right.
And I entered the contest, and I won 3rd place, which means I brought out a whole lot of people and was sort of okay at the stand-up, so everyone voted for me. And Dave said to me, he was the producer of the contest, he said, "Oh, well, why don't you come down to the beach where I live, and we can talk about your comedy and see if we can, get you up to 1st place," or, and I was like, "Oh, okay, that sounds good." No clue, Yeah. So anyway, I go have a date with Dave, and we kind of hit it off. And he asked me, I gave him notes about how bad the contest was. And then we decided together to produce it. And it was so he or I could MC it. Basically, we wanted to create our own opportunity for performances since no one was booking us.
Right.
And that's pretty much how it worked. The contest still runs today. It's like 19 years.
I know. Yeah, I was going to
years.
say, it's the longest running that I know of.
It really is the longest running comedy contest in LA.
And I mean, it's been in several different venues
yes.
over the years, but now, and I think this is a good segue into this. Now it's got a permanent home at Flappers Comedy Club in Burbank, which is your comedy club. So how did you... I know you talked about it for a while since I've known you. Like, oh, we're going to open a comedy club. But how did that decision come around? Was that more just like, it's a place we can perform? Or how did that come about?
Yeah, well, Dave and I were producing this Uncle Clyde's at various venues, and terrible things would happen. Like, everyone always thought if you produce a show at a venue, they think you own the venue.
Yeah.
They just, guests don't know. They come in, and one time we were at the, I don't know if I can name it. May I?
No, that's fine. Don't. Well, it's up to you.
It has cafe at the end of it and two words that aren't really true before it, so you can figure it out. But one time, Grant, that's where I met you.
Yeah.
Actually, we were producing Uncle Clyde's Comedy Contest at this two words and cafe venue, and a dog pooped under the table. And a guest came up. I was taking tickets, being producer and taking tickets, and the guest was just livid. And I said, oh my gosh, let me get the owner. So I go get the owner, and the owner goes over to the table and looks at the dog poop and basically just goes, oh, you should see my little puppy. My puppy's so cute. And he's just going on and on about his dog, and he walks away. And I'm looking at the dog poop, and I'm thinking, gosh, can you comp them something? Like comp their meal? Can you at least pick up the dog poop? And guess who picked up the dog poop?
You did.
I did. And I'll never forget it to this day. And then, of course, I even paid for the people's food because it just felt like...
Because you didn't want it to be a reflection on the contest.
Right.
Yeah.
I wanted our show to have a good reputation. And so it was after that and a few other incidents kind of like that. Dave and I decided, people think we have our own venue anyway. Why don't we just get our own venue? And then for about 10 years, our date night consisted of, hey, there's this vacant thing on Ventura Boulevard. Dave was obsessed with it. He would go find some place that was for sale, and we would go and have dinner there or whatever and look around. And we would just we had a very clear vision of what we expected a good comedy club to be as performers. No obstructions, no columns in the room, seats close to the stage, good sound, good lighting. It's pretty simple, really.
Yeah.
But it's amazing how many venues where, you go into where there's literally a column in your sight line.
Right.
You can't even see the performer.
Yeah.
So we had the opportunity of being both on stage, and then we would sit in these venues and just look around and go, well, yeah, that won't work, and that won't work. And for 10 years, we did this, and it kind of became a running joke, like, yeah, right, we're going to own a comedy club. And it'd be the end of the day, and we'd go, oh, are we ever going to open a comedy club? And we really did want it, so we wanted to create the perfect place for us to perform.
Yeah.
And then it's been about 5.5 years now, but we got a lucky break in Claremont, weirdly enough.
Right, because you own two comedy clubs
yes.
now. It's not just Flappers Burbank, it's Flappers Claremont.
Well, apparently word had spread that we were looking for a club, and the weirdest thing happened. I don't know if you knew this part, but a real estate agent sent us a picture of a venue in Claremont with a marquee on it. And the weirdest thing, it said, Gerrymander Comedy Club. It was so strange. We thought someone was sending us like anthrax or something. Like it was like... And then it said, Dear Dave and Barb, I heard you guys were looking for a comedy club. And here's this picture with Gerrymander Comedy Club. We're like, what? Of course, we're intrigued. So we call the lady. She said, oh, I heard about you guys as producers and that you've been doing big shows. And would you like to come to Pomona? And we're like, what? So we go out to Pomona, and the landlord says, we want to have a comedy club here. We'll let you have the space for free for a couple of years till you can build it and see how it goes and just do a good job. Mm-hmm. Apparently a comedy club is a nice, safe risk for a community. It's kind of adult entertainment without being adult entertainment.
Right.
So we didn't even know this. We were like, wow, we didn't know cities wanted comedy clubs. So free rent for 2 years? Hell yeah. So we're like, okay, well, why don't we do it? We've been wanting to do it for 10 years. Let's try it. So we opened up in this banquet space in the Packing House in Claremont, and it was actually great because we got to try out all these ideas. We'd been visualizing, and we realized, some of them work and some of them don't. And it was a lot of work and a lot of time and a lot of patience. And we built everything from scratch. Put our own speakers up, put our own curtains up. luckily we'd had a lot of experience because producing Clyde's all those years, we had to set up and break down in every venue we went to. So, that's a lot of years of experience doing that. So finally we started in Claremont and we're good to go. We're still there today.
Yeah.
That club is about 100 seats. Still the same speakers, still the same stage.
Yeah.
And people said they really liked the feel of the room. But, of course, we live in Burbank, which is about 35 minutes away from Claremont, and I wanted to open close to home. Who doesn't? I was like, let's just wake up, and we're going to work late hours. And we found a space in Burbank, and Dave didn't want to do Burbank. Dave wanted the small club, and I wanted the big club. So we found an old macaroni grill in Burbank, and it was vacant.
Yeah. Well, and I remember... I think Flappers is just amazing because I remember when you first opened and you were like, oh, if we can just make it through the first year, and like now it's been 5 plus years, right?
Yes, 5.5.
Yeah. It's a club where if I'm asked to perform there, I will perform there because it's a good club. It's great, but it's also right down the street. And, I love it. And I know people who go there love it. So, it's amazing. I also know it's a lot of work because you're always over there and you're running around and you're putting out every not literal fires, but sometimes maybe.
Yeah.
But you're putting out all these fires. But I wanted to ask, with all this running around, do you still find time to be creative and do creative, like your creative outlet?
Well, I do a podcast every week, thanks to you and your coaching. You helped me get that going.
The Flapcast? Yeah,
the Flapcast, and we try to do that. But I sometimes get pulled away. I mean, it's, there is a sad part of this, I hate to say. Dave and I built a comedy club that we as performers wanted to be a part of. And it is an amazing community of new comedians, developing comedians, such a comfortable space. Like, it is the place that I want to hang out. However, now I'm the boss. And it's hard to hang out. And it's a battle for creativity. I mean, and I'll even mention Dave as well. He sometimes has to be in the kitchen and he's like chopping cucumbers. And I'm like, Dave, you're on in 3. And it's like chop, chop, chop. And then next thing you know, he's on stage doing his bit.
Right.
I find it hard to do that. Like, for me, I need to separate it a little more. Like, I'm kind of in business mode or creative mode. So having the podcast once a week helps me because I have to do it, and I go to do creative mode. But I still think of myself as a creative person. I mean, when I'm on the phone talking about comedians or when I'm talking to comedians, I'm always cracking jokes, using my sense of humor. In fact, sometimes I think I'm sort of a little bit, I'll say Bruce Ben Bacharach-like. If you're watching Lady Dynamite.
Yeah.
Bruce Smith is Maria Bamford's manager, and I am, I feel a lot like that. I have those same conversations and all that. By the way, we're mentioned twice in the series.
And I've just started watching it, so I watched the first couple episodes.
It's spectacular.
Yeah.
But there's a great example of, like, Maria. We had performed with Maria as a comic at open mics and all around town for many, many years, and we were just performers. So when we created Flappers, it really felt like we made a home for comedians to really feel comfortable, both on stage and off,
Yeah.
We try not to charge comedians for their chicken wings unless it's a mistake, but we generally feed the comedians.
Right.
That's been a secret to our success. For all you clubs out there listening.
Give the comedians food.
Yes.
Yeah.
You'd be amazed how many clubs, because it is hard, the food and beverage part, like, lucky I have a partner, Dave, he runs the operations side, all the kitchen stuff, bar. I do more of the accounting and the booking and the creative side now.
Right. Well, we're going to wrap up here. If people wanted to follow you online and keep tabs of what's going on with you, where can they go?
I practice my own advice. I have a Twitter at Laugh Manager. LAUGH manager, Laugh Manager. I also have a website, Barbara Holliday, and that's Holliday with 2 L's.
Okay.
The other Barbara Holliday is like a porn writer or something. Yeah. So
romance
writer. Okay. So find me, BarbaraHolliday.com. You can see all my old sitcom clips and a little bit of stand-up. It's amazing how many people actually go and watch that stuff. And then tell me about it. And I go, oh, no, that's still up on my website. Also, flapperscomedy.com is our club website, and we have videos and bios and just a lot of great stuff up there. And if you're a new comedian listening, come audition for us.
Well, Barbara, thank you so much for talking to me today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Grant Baciocco.
Barbara Holliday is a comedian, comedy club owner, and former kids club host, and she was today's guest on 15 Minutes With. To find out more about Barbara, follow her on Twitter, where her username is LaughManager, or visit her website, barbaraholliday.com. Also, be sure to visit Flappers Comedy Club online at flapperscomedy.com. While I was talking to Barbara, I asked her what her advice is for new comedians to put them on the right track, and she gave a great answer. If you'd like to hear what it was, download the free Saturday Morning Media app for iOS and Android and click on the button that says bonus in the entry for this episode. To find out more, visit SaturdayMorningMedia.com/app. 15 Minutes With on the GrantCast is a production of Saturday Morning Media and is made possible by the Saturday Morning Media Patreon patrons who've gone to patreon.com/Saturday Morning Media and set up a monthly donation for as little as $1 a month. Huge thanks to Shay Stewart, Merle Lafferty, Jeff Peterson, Dale Gadania, Stephen Staver, Jackie Klimo, Melissa Crawford, Chuck, Matthew Wayne Selznick, Dave Slusher of the Evil Genius Chronicles, Mike Coughlin, Dorothy Baciocco, John D., Kathy Crawford, Brian Greer, Carrie Whitney, Chuck Tomasi, Chris Foster, Stephen Ing, Clinton of ComedyForecast.com, Vicky DeVries, Mike Wobschall, and Twitter user Butzinggear, a.k.a. Wildcat. If you'd like to support the show and the other fun content from Saturday Morning Media and hear your name at the end of every podcast, become a patron. Head on over to patreon.com/Saturday Morning Media today and set up your donation. You can also tell a friend about the show or leave the show a review on iTunes. Every little bit helps. And if you have feedback for this episode, you can send it to me directly at grant@throwingtoasters.com or get in touch via Twitter, where my username is ToasterBoy. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back soon with another interview. The GrantCast is copyright 2016 Saturday Morning Media, Grant Baciocco, executive producer. All rights reserved. www.SaturdayMorningMedia.com. You've been listening to Saturday Morning Media. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.